Welcome to another edition of On Point Live with Vince and Jackie, right here from the Manhattan Beach Studios. Hi, everybody. I'm Vince Ferragamo, former Los Angeles Ram quarterback, and alongside me is my former teammate and 20-year legend, Hall of Famer Jackie Slater. And Jackie, there's a lot of people out there that are going through NFL withdrawal right now. Super Bowl is over with now.
It's over.
But we have a lot of tidbits to share with our folks back there, maybe to help them get through it. Jackie, the first major topic is there's a lot of vacancies, head coaching vacancies in the NFL this offseason. 5 to name them all. And Jackie, from going from best to worst, how would you rate the transition of these new coaches coming in? I mean, you can talk all day about these coaches, but there's certainly a lot of rumors going around of what these teams are going to be like this coming
Exactly.
year.
And you know, when you start looking at the coaches that are being hired, this is basically how you feel you develop your comfort zone for who's going to be successful and who isn't. Mm-hmm. Well, when you take a look at it, there were 5 teams that were in search of head coaches this year: the Broncos, the Panthers, the Texans, the Colts, and the Cardinals. When I look at those 5 hires, I think for the most part, Vince, they were very good hires, and they were specifically targeted, these people. And I'll tell you what I mean in just a moment. The number one hire, in my opinion, of all the coaches was Sean Payton by the Broncos. We saw the disarray that went on there a year ago. Had to bring in a senior consultant to work with the young head coach, and that still didn't get it done. They don't have that problem anymore. They totally eliminated. They're going to have some congruency with the addition of Sean Payton, formerly of the Saints, now running that show. This guy's going to put together a roster, put together a coaching staff that's going to be superior, and that football team is going to make some advances.
And
this year.
Rex Ryan is one of those coaches, maybe on defense.
One of those coaches, he's had an interview, and he may very well end up being a defensive coordinator, which bodes well for Sean Payton and his defensive staff. The number 2 hire, in my opinion, and it could have been the best, and that was Frank White, your old buddy who was the quarterback to lead the
biggest comeback in NFL history.
The biggest comeback in NFL history. So he knows how to put a quarterback in position to be successful. But the thing, Vince, that was so exciting to me about what he did was that he went beyond the parameters of these young and upstarts. He went and he brought some aged experience to the table. He brought Dom Capers. Remember Dom Capers?
Sure.
He was the head coach of the Carolina Panthers for a long time. Dom Capers is 72 years old, Vince, and he's going to oversee the defensive compartment of this Panther football team. The next thing he did was he went and hired Jim Caldwell.
I like Jim Caldwell.
Jim Caldwell was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach with 2 Super Bowl winning teams. He was the head coach in
the
Detroit,
Lions?
a great offensive mind.
Yes.
Brought him in as to oversee the offense. He's 68 years old. And then he hired Chris Taylor, a 26-year NFL veteran, to be a special team coach.
What does that tell you, Jackie?
It tells you that this guy values experience. He values people that have been there, not figuring it out along the way.
Well, they're also going to tutor some of the young coaches he's got on his staff.
Absolutely.
These guys know how to win, and that's what's going to happen.
Who better to learn from is the question.
Yeah.
Now, the next one was Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon was assigned by the Cardinals. And the reason why I'm so excited about Jonathan Gannon is this guy was the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles had 75 sacks this past season. Most of them came without any blitz. They were the number 2 overall defense in the league next to the 49ers. And Vince, they did a great job of shutting down big-time playmaking tight ends. They held them to under 80% completion percentage, and that tells you a lot about the specificity of this guy's coaching.
Except in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, except in the Super Bowl. Now, Bidwell, the owner, and Austin Ford, the general manager, sat down at the press conference, and the thing that he said that was most impressive to me, and he kind of reminded me of Brandon Staley of the Chargers. He said, we are going to be an adaptable football team. We're going to play the people that we have at the best opportunities for them to be successful, and schematically, we're going to take away the strengths and the weaknesses, or exploit the weaknesses of our opponents. And you know who they have to deal with, right?
Oh, they have to deal with the Rams.
They've got to deal with the
Seattle
Rams.
And Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers.
Absolutely. 3 really good offensive football teams. So that was a defensive hire specifically to get control of the NFC West, in my opinion. Now, the number 4 guy was Shane Steichen, the second coordinator to lead the Eagles. Shane Steichen, in my opinion, is going to the coach. And
But who do they have to work with?
But
there?
does it matter? Does it really
Jacoby
matter?
Brissett, maybe.
Yeah, but Vince, this guy is a quarterback whisperer.
Yeah,
we saw what he did with Jalen Hurts.
You got to have some talent there too.
Yeah, he's going to have some talent. But remember, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, that could
so
be.
if he gets the right guy, and he does this quarterback whisperer thing that he does, which is special, then they could have a really good football team.
So none of these fixes actually is a one-time fix. It's for the duration.
Yeah,
it's for 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
and
we have to build this team. We have to get Russell Wilson back on top.
Absolutely.
We need Sean Payton to get him straightened out. We need to, because we have a team here. We want to move forward, right?
And if anybody
so all these teams can seem to be.
If anybody can get Russell Wilson straightened out, it's Sean Payton.
And most of these teams, Jackie, had 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins seasons. The only team that had 7 wins was the Panthers, and I think they've made the best upgrade in coaching, I think, in my opinion.
Well,
but you didn't get to Houston. That was your last pick.
I'm inclined to agree simply because of the experience of these people. They're not offensive and defensive coordinators, these old guys. Yeah. What they are overseers of the offensive and defensive staffs. They are specialists. And I like that, using that experience.
Don't you take it from the top when you look at Kansas City Chiefs, how well they did. They have experience on their staff. I mean, Eric Bieniemy, 10 years in the league. Okay, Andy Reid, many, many years in the league, and some of their other coaches. So this experience is handed down back to the players,
Absolutely.
and they can succeed on
Absolutely.
the field. And I think that's what's leading these coaches to hire some of those experienced coaches.
Frank Wright in particular.
Frank Wright.
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
And then the last guy, which I think is a good hire, DeMeco Ryans. He's going back to where he played his professional football. We saw what DeMeco Ryans did with the 49ers defense. They were the number 1 defense in all of pro football this past season. Just a multitude of ways that they took away offensive strengths. And so that's a very good hire. Only thing that concerns me a little bit about that is who his offensive personnel is going to be on his staff, because, Lovie Smith
was a offensive coordinator.
He was a defensive-minded guy as well, and they didn't do so well. So the support that DeMeco Ryans brings to the table on the offensive side of the ball is going to be key for him. But still, he's a good hire. So those are my top 5, Vince, and to me, they're improvements. These owners looked at these guys and they said, this is where we are in our division, this is who we have to deal with, and this is who we have to bring in to help us get the job done. So they did their homework, they brought in guys to solve the problems, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can get them solved.
Well, you mentioned a lot of great points, Jackie, but the offensive and defensive coordinators have to be an intricate part of the staff, but the head coach has to assemble everybody, and he has to be multifaceted. And you look at DeMeco Ryans, for example. I remember when he came out of Alabama as a player linebacker, he was up for one of the finalists for the Ronnie Lott Impact Award.
Absolutely, I remember that.
I voted for, I was on one of the group, I voted him top. And he came and he won that award that year, Jackie. And look how he's become as a coach, how community-oriented he is. He's multitask, multi-versatile, and he can do a good job. And I think that's what's required there, to oversee every aspect of the game, not just offense or defense. You have to oversee everything.
As a player, the thing that I remember about DeMeco Ryans was that he epitomized poise, aggression. He was always in control, and when he made a commitment to go to the ball, he went to the ball. But you had better been bracing yourself, because he was going to blow you up.
He's got some charisma too, Jackie, because he got the defense to play.
Absolutely.
Now, they were talented on defense, the 49ers were, but he stepped in, and he did a great job, and I think that's what got him the hire at Houston. But, Jackie, as you look at these 2 Super Bowl teams, you looked at the Chiefs and you look at the Eagles, most of the time when you go to a Super Bowl the following year, most of the teams do pretty well, and a lot of them do get into the playoffs. But some, like the Rams last year, they had 5 wins, they went 5-12. So they were one of the few exceptions that really didn't have a good year following the Super Bowl. Who do you think, between the Eagles and the Chiefs, how are any of those 2 teams going to drop off next year in the NFL season?
Well, both those teams are very well stacked, and when you think about Kansas City, they got, on top of all of the people that they have now, they have 11 draft choices that they're going to be able to choose and get some guys to strengthen their football team. So, and then Andy Reid stayed in place. The thing that concerns me about the Philadelphia Eagles, Vince, is that they lost both their coordinators. Both their coordinators were really, really unique guys and contributed heavily to the success, getting them to the Super Bowl. Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, he was the quarterback whisperer. We saw how Jalen Hurts over a 2-year period of time just took off.
Big difference.
Everything he did was special, and it was all under the tutelage of Steichen. So that concerns me a little bit about the continued growth of Jalen Hurts. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Vince, how do you replace being the second overall defense under this guy, under Gannon's leadership? Your second overall defense, they had 78 sacks, including the playoffs. And this was primarily without a blitz. This was four guys
rushing.
4 guys just getting after the quarterback.
Yes.
They did a great job of limiting these big-time explosive tight ends. And so he said in his press conference that they were going to be an adaptable team, and they're going to make some changes that are going to be, I think, critical.
Well, I think, Jackie, I think what's critical for the Eagles, and I think I see them dropping off more than they do the Chiefs, but because of the fact that their defense is aging now, Fletcher Cox is probably going to retire. I mean, it looks like. I mean, they have Linval Joseph, they had Adamakin Suh, they had Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were all backups. I don't really see them staying on. They were like all in for 1 year, and let's see if we can get to the Super Bowl. So they have to rebuild.
They got to rebuild the roster.
But don't underestimate Nick Sirianni, though.
I'm not going to underestimate it, Vince, but what I'm not going to do is underestimate the influence that Steichen had on the offense and that Gannon had on the defense. All of the production defensively was rare, raw numbers that are hard to duplicate, have never been duplicated before, and his presence is going to be missed as a defensive coordinator. That's the point that I was getting to. I think both these guys were critical to Sirianni's success this past year. Now, the thing that makes me feel somewhat optimistic, Vince, is that the roster is still there. They still got the behemoths up front, averaging 324 pounds. They still have the quarterback. They still have 285 reception receivers.
Well, Jackie, they were dominant. They won games blowing teams out, in this last season. I mean, they weren't like the Minnesota Vikings just squeaking a game out, winning on a lucky field goal on a lucky play.
They kicked the doors down.
They really did. There was really a dominant. They had a dominant season. And so you can do that when you have that offense and defensive line, like you mentioned. So, I mean, I think if any team, I think the Chiefs are stacked to really duplicate the season they had this year. Not too many teams. Actually, in the NFL history, we've had maybe 6 teams have gone back-to-back Super Bowls. It's amazing, those franchises. But the Chiefs now can make that happen as well, Jackie, moving forward. I think they did earlier on with Hank Stram.
How many draft picks? How many draft picks
they're
does Andy
loaded.
Reid have?
They're loaded.
I think it's 11, Vince. 11 draft choices. And that's on top of
in 6 rounds.
Yeah, and that's on top of everything that they have in place. Because remember, they played more young guys, first, second-year guys this past season than anybody in all of the playoffs and in the season. They played more young guys. But
not only did they play them, Jackie, they made an impact on their team.
Absolutely.
They made plays. They contributed to the team.
They
They weren't just a rookie. They were a rookie that was moving along and gaining. And what's always impressed me with coaches, and we talk coaches, we'll move on to the next question, but when you're on the sideline, Jackie, if I'm a running backs coach, I'm talking to my backup running backs or the guy that's going to go in to relieve another player. And did you see what happened in that play? Okay, this is what we have to do. But they're coaching them up on the sideline during the game.
Right.
And that shows me that, hey, this coaching staff, and you saw that with the Chiefs, you saw that with the Eagles.
You certainly did. Vince, Eric Bieniemy, this is a big topic of conversation for a lot of people. And a lot of people are upset. Some people are downright angry about it. Eric Bieniemy was on the Kansas City Chiefs staff for 10 years, and the last 5 of which I think he was the offensive coordinator.
Right.
Eric Bieniemy had a 1-year contract for the last 5 years, which means that he could have left the organization and gone anywhere he wanted to and would not have to, it would not be considered a lateral move because they won't make you, most organizations won't let you make a lateral move. You can make a move up, but you can't make a lateral move. But he had that option because he had a 1-year deal. This is my question, Vince. This is what concerns me. And I think a lot of people that have been calling in and whatnot, they want to know why it is that this is the first year in the last 10 years that Andy Reid's successor has been dubbed, and that person is Matt Nagy. Why was Eric Bieniemy overlooked as the possible successor of Andy Reid? Why did he have to leave? And why is Matt Nagy considered a better head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward after Andy?
Okay, well, let's first understand the relationship between Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. Two tightly knit people, okay, that got along great. They were good friends. He stayed there 10 years, Jackie, and he had one-year contracts. Yeah, why didn't he sign a multi-year contract? Maybe for one reason or another. That's the business side of the game. But all I can tell you is that when I've seen Eric Bieniemy, I played against him in college, okay? He played at Colorado. I played at Nebraska. He had the aspirations to get into coaching. He was well-rounded, okay? He has a great rapport with players. He has great charisma to generate guys and get them excited to play, all right? And a lot of it has to do with being a former player, okay, to relate to players that play the game. But I think that in those years, Andy Reid still had a quest to go to a Super Bowl and win Super Bowls. This was 5-10 years ago. Recently, now we hear more talk of who is the replacement to Andy Reid because he's older now. He's already achieved 2 Super Bowl wins. I happen to think it's more of a timing issue than anything else. But I also see that Andy Reid wasn't going to stand in the way of Eric Bieniemy to succeed and go on to have aspirations if he did have an aspiration to be a head coach. And so a lot of times some coaches are content being a coach and being an assistant. Jackie, if I was coaching, I don't have any intention to be a head coach. I'm too old to be a head coach. I could help a quarterback.
I know. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that, for a lot of people, that doesn't hold water, that argument.
Yeah.
Simply because, Vince, Eric Bieniemy his name has been mentioned as a possible head coach in the National Football League for the better part of the last 5 years. And for the first year he leaves there, now they've already knighted Nagy as a successor to Andy Reid.
Yeah,
so a lot of people think that Eric Bieniemy was pushed out of the situation, and that's we won't go into all that.
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor that point. But my next question to you is, Vince, do you think that Eric Bieniemy went into a good situation into Washington? And if so, why?
Well, he doesn't have the tool set that he had with the Chiefs, Jackie. First of all, he doesn't have Mahomes as quarterback, okay? He doesn't have all the skill position players. He's going to have to bring a culture to their offense. And, they have a few weapons there, and they're growing, but they're still building. But, again, the Washington team really has not shown much in recent years. When we played, when they had Joe Gibbs there and different ownership, they were one of the top teams in the NFL. You always had to watch out for. But with Ron Rivera there as a defensive-minded coach, he needed somebody to coach the offense. Okay, so they bring him in. And Eric Bieniemy has interviewed, I believe, in the past for head coaching positions, never got one. I don't know why. He was obviously had the credentials to become a head coach, but he went on a lateral move, like you said, this year. But I think he steps in a Washington team that really needs a lot of help, Jack, but I think it's going to be hard for him to succeed because you can only work with what you have. He can put the best plays in motion, but if he doesn't have guys to execute those plays and an offensive line like Jalen Hurts had around him, it's hard to become successful.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Vince. And so whatever success that he has at the Washington football team is going to be solely on his shoulders. He's going to have an opportunity to build an offense that's successful and that is competitive against the Cowboys, the
That's
Eagles.
what I was just going to mention, Jackie. Look at his foes. Look who's in the NFC
Absolutely.
East. Okay, you've got Dallas. They can put pressure on the quarterback.
Absolutely.
This is not the same as the AFC West. This is the NFC East. Okay, you got Dallas. You got Philadelphia. You got to play Detroit. And Detroit's coming on.
Vince, the one thing you don't have is a quarterback. Where is the quarterback? I understand that they have 10 really good quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. And who knows, they have choice, they have picks. Maybe they can get in there and dig one of those guys out of there for Andy. Hi, I'm Jackie Slater, and I want to thank you for joining myself and Vince Ferragamo here as we share with you some of our insights about the great game of football that we both love. I want to encourage you to come along with us on this journey. We love what we're doing. Subscribe, send us a thumbs up, give us a comment. And if you'd like to email us and contact us, you can do it at onpoint@manhattanbeachstudios.net. In the meantime, stay on point.